Okay, let's be real. Have you ever typed out an email that sounds something like, per my previous correspondence, I am writing to ascertain the status of the project deliverables? I mean, you read it back and just cringe, right? It sounds so stiff. It's such a common trap to fall into when you're writing in a language that's not your first.
Oh, it absolutely is. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. This quote here really hits the nail on the head. Your grammar can be totally perfect, but the tone just feels off. It usually happens because we're thinking in our native language and just translating words directly, and that natural conversational feel gets lost. But the good news is it is so easy to fix once you see the patterns. Okay, so if that direct translation is the problem, what's the solution? How do we fix it and start sounding more natural?
It really comes down to having the right game plan and the right tools. So here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to lay out a super simple foundation for any email. Then, we're going to fill your toolkit with 5 essential templates for common situations. And finally, we'll go over the big mistakes you've got to avoid. So, let's start with that foundation.
All right, first things first, the foundation. Before we even get into templates or fancy phrases, you have to get this down. Just about every great professional email, no matter what it's about, is built on the same simple 4-part structure. Think of it like the basic architecture that makes sure your message is clear and super easy for anyone to understand. And here it is. It's honestly that simple. 1. You have your opening greeting. 2. You state your purpose right away. Why are you emailing? 3. You give the details or make your request. And 4. You wrap it all up with the closing and your signature. If you just keep this framework in your head, you will never send a confusing email ever again.
Awesome. So now that we have that foundation built, it's time to open up the toolkit. We've put together 5 templates for some of the most common, and let's be honest, sometimes the most awkward professional situations you're going to run into. These are basically your cheat sheets for sounding great.
First up, the formal request. So picture this. You need to ask a senior colleague or maybe even your boss for a meeting. You know they're swamped, so you want to sound really respectful of their time and definitely not like you're making a demand.
Exactly. So instead of something blunt like, I need to meet with you, the secret is to soften the language. Asking, would you be available? Totally changes the tone. It turns a command into a polite question, and then adding a simple little phrase like, I am flexible, shows that you really do respect their schedule. It's a small change that makes a huge difference.
Okay, this next one. This gives me anxiety just thinking about it. You sent a really important email, you're waiting for a reply, and you've heard nothing. Crickets. So how do you follow up without sounding pushy or, just plain annoying?
Right. This is all about the gentle nudge. The key is to keep your language totally neutral and helpful. Using phrases like, I wanted to follow up on, or I haven't heard back, are just simple statements of fact. They're not accusations. But here's the magic trick. Adding, if you need any clarification. That completely reframes your follow-up. It's not a demand for a reply anymore. It's an offer to help, and that's so much softer.
I love that. Okay, scenario number 3. You have a question. You really don't want to look like you weren't paying attention during the meeting, or worse, like you're wasting everybody's time with something you should already know.
Yep. The trick here is to signal that you respect their time right from the start. Kicking it off with, I have a quick question, immediately tells them this won't be a huge time sink. Then, could you clarify, is just a really polite way to ask for more info. And here's a little pro tip. Using thanks in advance is powerful. It shows you appreciate their help before they've even given it, which makes them way more likely to respond positively.
Oof. Now for a tough one. You have to be the one to tell your boss or a client that a project is delayed. The goal here is to be totally honest, but without sending everyone into a full-blown panic.
This one definitely requires a clear strategy. You have to start by getting right to it, acknowledging the problem with a word like unfortunately. But then you immediately pivot to the solution. However, we're actively working on this. This shows that you're on top of it. And finally, you have to take responsibility with, I apologize for any inconvenience. That's absolutely critical for keeping trust. Just remember the formula: problem, action, apology.
Okay, let's end this section on a happy note. You've just landed a new client or closed a deal. How do you write that final confirmation email to make sure everything is crystal clear and everyone's excited to get started?
This is where you really seal the deal with confidence and professionalism. You want to start with a ton of gratitude and enthusiasm, something like, thank you so much, or I'm so excited about. Then you have to be super clear about what happens next. Use action-oriented phrases like I've attached and once you've reviewed to guide them. It just leaves zero room for any confusion and gets things started on the right foot.
Okay, so now you've got the templates. But knowing what not to do is just as important as knowing what to do. So let's run through some of the most common mistakes in a quick, rapid-fire round. Ready?
Oh, I've definitely gotten this one. Hey guys, just checking in about the project, LOL. Yeah, that's just way too casual for most offices. You want to stick with something neutral like, hi everyone, and just keep the tone professional. You can save the LOL for text with your friends.
Next up, please avoid the giant wall of text. Nobody has time to read a novel in their inbox. The solution is simple. Use short paragraphs. White space is your friend. Stick to one main idea per paragraph. It makes your email so much easier to scan and actually understand.
How about this one? Hi, just emailing to see what's up. A classic case of an unclear purpose. The person reading it is thinking, what do you want from me? You have to be direct in that very first sentence. I'm writing to request, or the purpose of my email is to confirm. Just get straight to the point.
And finally, never ever forget the bookends of the email. Just jumping straight into your message without a greeting feels really jarring, and ending without a proper closing just feels abrupt. A simple dear name and a best regards are like the bread on a sandwich. They are absolutely non-negotiable.
Okay, wow, this has all been so helpful. We have the foundation, we've got the templates, and we know what mistakes to look out for. So, what are some final pro tips that can take our emails from just being good to being truly great?
All right, lightning round, 5 final tips. 1, read your email out loud before you send it. If it sounds like a robot wrote it, rewrite it. 2, keep it short. Shorter is almost always better. 3, use simple words. Why say utilize when you can just say use? 4, proofread. Seriously, typos can really undermine your credibility. And 5, match the tone. Pay attention to how others in your company communicate and mirror that.
So, we've covered a ton of ground here today. I want you to think about the emails that are sitting in your inbox right now, or the ones you have to write this week. Now that you have this toolkit, which one of these templates are you going to use first? Are you going to try the gentle follow-up, or maybe that formal request? The absolute best way to make this stick is to actually use it right away.
Okay, so if there's one thing, just one big idea to remember from all of this, what would it be?
If you forget everything else we talked about, just remember this. Use short paragraphs, have a crystal clear purpose in your very first sentence, and above all, always respect the reader's time. If you can do those 3 things, you're always going to sound professional, natural, and clear.